All right, welcome everybody to our coaching session this morning. So, yes, I have a feeling. Thanks for the Black Eyed Peas, Joe, getting this all going. That's a great warm up for us this morning. Hope you're feeling good. I'm excited about the topic today. Welcome to our visitors. Ange, we do have a few visitors today, right? Oh, let me unmute you. Go ahead. Say that again, Ange. Yeah, we have a few visitors. Is that right?
Yes, and I'm seeing a couple. Okay, Britt. Let's see. Britt, that's so awesome. Good to see you. Okay, so we've got Leslie, and I kind of feel bad yesterday. Leslie's joined us, and I should have had Joe unmute the mic so she could say hello. Sean, I haven't slept last night because I didn't do
Yeah, how dare you, Angie? How dare you?
Seriously. Kate, Tara is also joining us today.
Great.
Okay, let me see. I'm just looking through really quick. I want to make sure that I haven't forgotten somebody. And maybe we'll have a few more so anyway, if I've forgotten somebody on here, I totally apologize.
Oh, the pressure. The pressure. Well, thanks, Ange. You got welcome, everybody. Today's a great topic. I mean, this is how to get our offers accepted in a crazy world that we're in right now with all these multiple offers and really fast-paced market right now. How many of you just raise your hand if you printed out the materials? Yeah. Okay. Great. So Britt's like, I didn't do that, so it's okay.
I'll throw them in the chat real quick.
Throw them in the chat. Thanks, Joe. So print them off. We're gonna make some notes today and. Got a surprise for everybody. I'm hoping it arrives soon. It's going to come into my email as soon as I get a text here. I'll open that up too. So we've got a lot to talk about today. So, all right, buckle up, because this is for you.
Oh, man.
All right. Okay. So market's crazy. I'm going to do something backwards. Normally I'd go like, what brought us here? And how are we getting all these multiple offers and talk about that and get a running start at it. I'm going to save that for the end. Okay. I'm going to jump right into this list right now. And let's talk about how we're going to improve our odds of getting our offer accepted. So everybody grab your sheet, or if you don't have it, I'll get it to you later. If you're a visitor and didn't get it, that's fine. Just go ahead and make some notes. And we're going to talk about these right now. So you can see on the list, there's 8 items that we're going to talk about in improving our odds of getting our offer accepted. And the first one is, without a doubt, probably the most critical point, and it's how we price the offer. Now, I know that's no surprise to anybody that the price is a huge factor when a seller is considering what offer to take. But it's not just about the offer price that you put down. Let's make some notes on this. Let me pull it up, guys. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm not going to be exhaustive with this. So, but there it is. Number 1, price. So, yeah, it's a huge factor, but we've got a couple of tools that we could use here when it comes to how we pay for the property. So, all right, here it is. Consider using an escalation clause. Let me unshare for a minute. Raise the hands. How many of you have either as a listing agent or as buyer's agent dealt with an escalation clause? Yeah, a few. Okay. Do you have different opinion about this? Like the form, like the form. Don't like escalation clauses. They don't work every time. That's the key to remember. So the first note there is, I wouldn't just automatically jump to an escalation clause on any offer. A lot of times, matter of fact, I've been on the listing side with a family member just a few months ago, and we frankly just took the offer that was the best. Even that we had 2 other escalation clause offers we did not take. We looked at the offers in totality and felt like one of the other offers was stronger, even though it didn't have an escalation clause. However, sometimes an escalation clause is exactly what you need to win the bid, okay, to win the bid. And some of this, guys, is a crossover to your buyer consultation meeting, okay? We had a class on that before. It's already recorded. It's a Zoom recording already out there. But this dovetails and marries right into this. So notice when I say things like win the bid, that should be in your buyer consultation discussion. What does Will do, that you're professional? What does the agent do? What does Berkshire Hathaway do to help you win the bid? Because that is going to be something that you're going to face. You may face multiple offers, so we've got to be smart and wise, professional about how we win the bid. Okay. Let me get to Kara's comment in just a second, but and Joe, don't let me forget to come back to Kara's comment, okay? You guys use the chat. Thank you for being interactive and being involved in the class. It really improves the quality of the class. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the escalation clause. So let's take a look at this. This is in .loop. You bring it over. Okay, voila, there it is. Okay, this is in .loop. You can go in and search it in our internal forms. Notice this does not have the UAR logo. This is an internal form. Matter of fact, I think in the future, we're going to find that we're going to put a little watermark right here that indicates that it's authored by an attorney. It's internal and therefore able for real estate licensees to use it. So it's in accordance with the licensing rule that an attorney drafted the document. So here it is, escalation clause. All right, so first of all, it defines when this kicks into place, okay? It's citing 2.1, which is our sales price section of the REPC. It defines what competing offers are. If prior to seller's acceptance of this REPC, seller receives one or more bona fide written offers, known as competing offers, with terms acceptable to the seller, which would result in greater net proceeds to the seller from the sale of the property than the nets to the seller that would result from this REPC. All right. So in other words, someone's willing to pay you more. And notice we're using this net. The reason we use that is because it's contemplating concessions, right? So this is that last sentence. For the purposes of addendum, net proceeds means the amount of the purchase price less the amount of any seller concessions. Okay, so sometimes we've got bid on this in the past, guys, where the offer was technically more, but the concessions were higher, and so we got into an argument, a debate as to whether or not an escalation clause kicked in, even though the offer was netting the seller more. Okay, again, use your chat if you have any questions. I could probably even unmute you if you wanted to ask anything about this escalation clause. B here is the escalation amount. Buyer agrees to increase the purchase price by the amount necessary to permit the seller to realize net proceeds to the seller that are blank more than the net proceeds to the seller of the competing offer. In other words, we'll pay X amount of dollars more than your highest offer. Your next highest offer, right? Okay, so that's section B. Then there's a cap, so not to exceed, and then you go up to such an amount. Now, the downside of these escalation clauses is sometimes you get sellers who just say, well, if you're gonna go up to that cap, then I think I'll just counter you to your cap, right? And I think our buyers need to know that, right, guys? So has that ever happened to anybody where you get just a counter at the cap? So sometimes that can backfire a little bit. That's why I don't always jump to these escalation clauses. Here's the documentation that we need to see. If we wrote this, we want to see the other offer. We do, eliminate the personal information here is redacted for privacy, but we would see verification that there was indeed another offer. If there are multiple escalations, buyer agrees that the multiple offers containing escalation clauses may result in multiple escalations, and in some cases, escalation to the cap. So the buyer is acknowledging that. This section has to do with the effect of the loan, because we had to address that when you wrote the offer, you had to say what the loan amount was, and then the seller to respond to this will agree to the terms of this addendum, and then a disclaimer to the buyer. All right, let me stop sharing for a second. So all right, let's go to questions now on the escalation clause, which is just one thing we want to talk about with price. Anybody have a question you want to ask verbally?
Or you can go ahead and type it in the chat.
Type in the chat and we'll unmute you. Kevin Larson, seller concessions, i.e. sellers paid closing costs for buyer, et cetera. Yes. The concessions, again, the great thing about this addendum is it addresses those concessions. Okay, so in other escalation clauses that we were considering or language, it didn't address the actual net to the seller. So, Kev, anything else you want to add? I'm asking him to unmute.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah,
go
there's a worksheet that goes with this where you actually write the competing offer price less the seller concessions,
right?
Add the escalation amount, and then that would show exactly what the competing offer forced you to go to up to your cap or whatever your escalation amount is. So the worksheet is necessary to actually disclose all of this. Otherwise, the seller could play you and bump it up to the cap arbitrarily.
Yeah, very good point. Thanks for bringing that up. And Dawn, you've got a great point too here. If it doesn't appraise, is the buyer still obligated? So there's an amount there that buyer. So I've got some language coming from Mark later, guys, on that issue. But to address Dawn's question, let me go back. Let's go back.
Michael also has a question.
Okay. All right. I'll come right to it. Okay. Effect on the loan. If the buyer will be financing a portion of the purchase price and the application of this clause set forth in section 1 above results in an increase in the purchase price, the loan amount provided for in this REPC shall remain the same. The buyer shall pay an increase in the purchase price in cash at time of settlement. This is dancing around that issue, Don, about what if it goes above appraisal. It doesn't say that, but it says the loan amount is kept the same. This is to give some comfort to the seller that if it exceeds an appraisal price, that the buyer is going to make that up in cash, an additional down payment. Now, many times we are seeing appraisals come in at that. I mean, it's actually more than not. I know it can be a problem, and we obviously talk about our problems, so it seems like we get a lot of them, but statistically speaking, we often get appraisals to come in. And when they do, the buyer is simply adjusting their loan amount, which they have the right to do. So good question. Okay, Ange, another one? You had a question? Or?
You know what? It was Michael. Michael Hurd had a question.
Oh, Michael. Okay, go ahead, Michael. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
You know, this was such an interesting situation because 3 weeks ago, I had 9 offers and 5 escalations.
Yeah.
And it was, I think you're aware of that situation.
Yeah,
it was so difficult. And one of the buyers who did not win the bid thought they would win the bid because they had the cap set so it was $90,000 over the list price.
Yeah.
And it was so challenging, and he was so upset because he didn't get it because he thought that should have nailed it. And also in the counteroffer, he stipulated that it had to appraise for X amount, and then the cap would go up to X amount. So, and I literally had to put them all out on a spreadsheet to analyze them. It got really complicated.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, all those escalation clauses, you know, it doesn't ensure that you win the bid, right. You know? So that's the point. That's why we've got the list. You know, I mean, there's more to it than just that, even though this is a huge factor. Okay, anybody else? Let's see, Matt, the portion of the addendum that shows loan value important, can you show that again? Yeah, look at that one more time. Yeah, and you guys, you can pull this down on dot loop in our internal library, but there it is, the effect of the loan. It's saying that the buyer is going to keep that loan amount the same. Addendums do dominate REPC language, but you know, I see often the buyer just raises the loan amount to cover that, but that's not what that says here, right? So it doesn't say that. It says the buyer's going to make it up in cash. The reason they do that is to tell the seller, if it doesn't appraise for all these escalations and all these above, you know, asking price offers, then I'll make that up in cash. Okay. So yeah, this is not something you go to every time. You know, it's not something you just reach for and use every time. Okay, let's go to Kara's comment. Kara, do you want to elaborate on that? Where is Kara? Kara, you want to here? I got you. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, so in a sales meeting a couple weeks ago, Jake Breen was just saying that he prefers not to use an escalation clause, that he likes to talk directly with the listing agent and find out as much as he can about the competing offers and let them know that, you know, whatever terms the seller's looking for, that they'd like to just do that best offer that's going to, you know, win the deal from the beginning without the escalation clause. So I was in a situation this weekend where there was already at least one offer in place, and I was trying to dance around and get as much information from the listing agent as I could, but I know there's certain things that they can or cannot say. So any tips you have on what questions we can ask, and, you know, as I guess a listing agent, what are we able to say and not say?
Yeah. First of all, I mean, isn't that really the point, you guys, that you know, the point is not to use the escalation clause at all. And I know you go, I know I'm known to love real estate forms, but the objective is to get the deal accepted, not to use all the forms you possibly can. So, yeah, I mean, Kara's right, Jake's right. I mean, that's the point, is to better write an offer that's going to be the one that gets accepted. And boy, information sure lights your path, doesn't it? So if you can get a listing agent to really tell you a little bit more about what they're looking for, well, by all means, you know, just write that offer. You know, a lot of times though, they're kind of vague. You know, I mean, they don't want to set a cap either, do they? Because the seller doesn't want their agent saying, well, we'll be thrilled with, you know, with 750 to only find out later that the bidding process could have, you know, brought that price closer to 775. So, you know, every deal is so different. Okay. All right. Kevin Larson, listing agent cannot give away the seller's portion, so they need to follow the seller's wishes. The seller may want multiple offers. Yeah, I mean, multiple offers usually means a higher net, doesn't it? I mean, I guess I haven't seen a situation where it doesn't net the seller more. So a good listing agent is trying to drive as much interest as possible. And in this market where the supply is very low, demand is very high in a lot of segments of the market, we're going to see a lot of these multiple offers, and they're likely to drive the price up. Okay, we got a lot more to talk about on this list. I don't want to get hung up too much, but can I give you some things to write down next to price? Write this down. The first thing that came to mind is the word expectations. And so write that down. We need to manage the expectation with our buyer as to what, you know, sellers really do. In absence of multiple offers, it seems like people just think you're going to offer lower and that's just what you do. And sometimes that's okay, and sometimes it's not. If we're talking about winning the bid or getting our offer accepted, that's usually not the best way to do it, is to come in under asking price, right? So it's something that the buyer should consider. So expectation. Now, write down comps, but I know that sounds so simple, but something else that we have to be careful of. When you go to review comparables around that subject property, it often has gotten me in trouble, because there's going to be one or two that they're going to pull down and say, see, it's like this one, you know, and it's so subjective, and every property is so different. And you'll find yourself with a buyer who says, well, since that one sold for 710, then why don't we make an offer for 710? you know, and you find yourself in a debate almost with your buyer about justifying a higher offer price. So you got to be really careful. It's always important to remind our buyers we want what they want, but we do need to win the bid, right? While we're trying to negotiate the best price. And so that can be really challenging. And so you got to make sure you don't just skip over that.
Well, I like Kara's question here. She's saying, I know you can ask, would a full price offer be competitive, but are there any other good questions to kind of get that information out of the seller? You know, what are we obligated to do in terms of making sure we're always in best interest of the client, and then also, of course, protecting confidentiality and some of the other things we're legally obligated to do?
Yeah. Well, all right. I'll pay Kara and Joe for online talent today to transition us to item number 2. Are there other questions that we ask? And there certainly are. And this is a big one. All right. So let's go on to contract deadlines. So these deadlines, let's just come back to our list. Let me get rid of this, guys. Move that over. All right, contract deadlines. So these deadlines can be good indications for a seller on how solid the buyer really is. Making deadlines as short as possible sends a very strong message. Why? Because earnest money deposits become non-refundable. Also, accommodating the seller's moving schedule can be just the thing to help the seller feel good about the offer. So here's some notes, and then I'll take questions on it. I want you to remember possession. So that's a deadline that often gets overlooked because we think about due diligence, we think about finance and appraisal and settlement and closing, all those things that we think about first, and they're important. They sure are because that's what we just said. But we often forget about when would the seller like to move ideally? How much time do they need to move out? You know, and every house is so different. You've got sellers who've packed up most of the house and, they're ready to go. And you've got others who've done nothing and they're really concerned about it. We have heard of offers that were accepted that were a lower offer, primarily because the buyer was willing to give the seller. The last one I heard was one from Kevin Jensen. They gave the owner, it was the rest of the month, if I remember right. So it had to be 2 or 3 weeks for the seller to move out. Now that can cause other problems, but for right now, when we're talking about how to get the offer accepted, remember possession, okay? And shorter deadlines as possible. Okay, any questions on that, on contract deadlines? I know in the beginning, like I went in pre-licensing school and I'm teaching, I'll have agents write down, well, I want, 5 days for seller disclosure. I want 14 days for due diligence. I want 21 to 28 for financing and appraisal. And I want 30 days or 40 days for settlement. Okay, that's fine as a guideline. But when you have competing offers and an agent looks at that, they know that financing and appraisal is a cancellation, right? That's a potential cancellation. So as short as those deadlines can be, the better, because it sends a strong message about the strength of the buyer. Okay, stop sharing for a second. Any questions around number 2, contract deadlines or anything about contingencies? John saying, how do we get lenders to allow for a lease back for an extended period of time over 60 days? So John, on the underwriting side, the max is 60 days. Everyone can write that down. Underwriting guidelines right now are 60 days for rent back. Of course, if you're not getting paid, I'm not even sure it matters. But if you're getting paid, if you got to occupy the property in 60 days. Okay, that's what it says. All right, and we can, there can be more complexities, but it's 60. The problem we've got with that is we need language around it. All right, so you're going to need a lease back agreement. Seller is closing on the property and they become a tenant. And the REPC, you can write in up to 7 days on the REPC, and this is just a guideline for possession, right? 7 days. But if it starts going over 7 days, then we need some kind of tenancy agreement with that seller who's becoming a tenant, right? And a lease back agreement. Okay, so make a note of that. Okay, John, I hope that helped. Thanks for the input there. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 3, earnest money. This is a big one. How much is too much? How much is too little? Great question, right? Okay. So remember from the class we had, I think it was 4 weeks ago, earnest money is set aside in case of a default. All right, if you hurt the other party. So if the amount is low, it sends a message that they want the other party to take the risk. Usually that means seller, go off the market, say no to all the buyers. I want your active status to be changed depending on the MLS. I want you to shut down, anyone else who can buy it while I think about whether or not I really want to purchase the property, and I want to take 3 to 4 weeks to do so. Oh, wow, right? I mean, that's kind of how it works in Utah. There's other states that, after the seller disclosure that, there's earnest money is non-refundable right away. And we have these long conditions and contingencies out there. But in regards to the amount of the earnest money, you can see John says earnest money is often 3%. Remember, the best question here is what are the damages going to be, and is it enough? Right? And we can ask that of our buyer too. So if the seller refuses to close, what will your damages be? And that can be different for everyone. And I think that's a minimum, right? Because the buyer is also saying to the seller, if I hurt you, I've got to be aware of what your damages might be, right? So we're going to pay close attention to that amount. And also 8.3 BI. I still see offers with 0 there. Anytime you see a 0 in 8.3 BI, just know that the financing and appraisal deadline is being used as an out, right? I can see you guys shaking your heads because this has burned you before. And I think many of us have wondered at times, did the buyer just change their mind and just use that condition as an out where they should have done this in due diligence? Well, you bet they did. Yeah, you bet they did. Because of the language in the REPC that says, here, let's just for our own sake here let's see, where did I put that? I think I put it in dot loop. Here we go. REPC. Okay, we go to financing section. All right, let me find the key word here. Here it is. Okay, 8.3. Here's B. Okay, here's BI. There's the amount that I believe should always have something in it. I mean, if you don't put anything in there, then you really don't have much of a due diligence separating financing and appraisal. You just have one deadline in which the buyer can cancel, and they'll find themselves canceling even for issues that should have been under due diligence. And you're not going to do much about it. I'm just telling you. Why? Because of this wording right here. If buyer in buyers, what does that say right there? Yep. Sole discretion. Sole discretion. It doesn't matter. We've had cases where the interest rate went down and the lender even threw in some costs and the buyer still canceled. Right? Yeah, sole discretion. Okay. All right, so let's go back here. Also, sorry, there's a typo right here, guys. Consider adding additional earnest money to, what should that say? That should say 8.4, right? 8.4. And dot loop again, let's pull that up. So 8.4 additional earnest money here. So we should see something in here. Man, if I were going to write a really strong offer, this is a big one because I don't have to pay more, right? Think about it. How do I make my offer stronger without paying more? Well, I go to 8.4 and I add an additional amount here, and there will be an additional amount. When is it due? When is this amount due? It's after all the conditions are removed. See, due diligence, finance and appraisal, which is later. So after all conditions are removed, this amount is deposited into the trust account. Will you make a note on this one? Again, high level real estate here, guys. Make a note on this one that if that deposit is happening in less than 7 days to settlement, if it's less than 7 days, then the brokerage cannot season the money. Okay, so you got to be careful of that. So just put a note, be careful of seasoned funds. If we get a check from a buyer and it's say 5 days prior to settlement, and then the lender wants proof that we received the money because that's ultimately going to be part of their down, that money's got to be sitting there. So just make a note. So what's the best practices? You know, I get that it's after the latest deadline, but if we're talking about a strong offer, try to keep that maybe around 10 days prior to, because that way it'll be seasoned by the time we get to settlement, okay? This is why they need us, right? This is why we're needed. We're surgeons. It's very delicate, right? Joel, this is like having an amazing editor who can hear everything, every little detail, right, Joel? Yeah. Okay, let's get some questions then. Okay, so we're already down to number 3. How do developers get away with 1 or 2 years? Jeff, do you want to talk about that one? Sorry, I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
I did. I mean, a lot of times when you go with condos or townhomes and stuff like that, developers ask for leasebacks, and it could last a year or 2. And if a lender, if the buyer's getting a loan, how do they get away with it?
Well, it's a good question, really good question. What happens there with the lending process is that owner-occupied status either is not required or flexible. You know, the intent to owner-occupy, or the down payment is enough. The lender, frankly, doesn't care whether they rent it out entirely forever, right? So, but that is the nuance to it, whether or not the underwriter is requiring an immediate occupancy of the property.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good question. Okay, coming on down, let's see, Bettina, what happens if damages occur within those 7 days? Is the additional form that can be added. Bettina, do you want to talk about that? Clarify what your question was? Let's see, where's Bettina? Trying to find you. Where are you? Oh, whoops. Bettina, raise your hand again. Joe, you don't see her, do you?
I did see her in the chat. Hang on a second. Which one? We have 2 Bettinas.
Oh, here we go. Which Bettina Katz. Okay, Bettina, I got you. Okay, you're off mute.
Okay, so you said in possession that you're allowed you could go to 7 days. And
in the Rep C, yes.
In the Rep C. So if they move in and they're there for a week and damage is caused, what happens then? I mean, the sellers are stuck with the damaged dishwasher or fire or what? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So if well, look, we closed, the seller is staying in the property, right? For 7 days. You remember in the Rep C where we've got this language that says it'll survive? Am I still on share? Wait, sorry. Am I still on share? Share screen? No? Here we go. Okay, so there's sections in the Rep C right here. Shall survive closing. See that? Okay, so repair or seller or tenant move-in related damages to the property are at the seller's expense and it shall survive closing. So that protects the buyer, that they got the right to have the property the way it was as time of acceptance, right? So that's what it says in 10.3, that it will be the same substantial general condition, there it is right there, as it was the date of acceptance. And that will survive closing. So we could lean on that. Now, that doesn't mean it always happens. So if we got to get an attorney involved, well, that's just what happens, right? Okay. All right. Ron's saying wire the money. Good recommendation. Paige, how long does it take to season the money? I think it's 5 days, Paige. But so 7 kind of gives us enough time. We've got to get it deposited. It's got to be in the bank. So if it's there, if money is wired, is 7 days a problem? No. So if we get a check, it's a problem. It's got to clear the wire. Let me confirm on the wire. Hey, Kev Larson, could you confirm on Seasons Funds? Let me unmute you. On Dunn's question.
There we go.
There you go. Sorry.
Season funds, typically the banking regulations, they want 10 days from a check, but a wire is available generally 24 hours after it's been received. So wires are much preferred.
Yes. Okay. So 24 hours. All right. I didn't know what the rule was there. So 24 on wires. Write that down.
You would think that wires would be available immediately, but they still check to make sure there was no fraudulent activity on the wire. So banks won't actually count them as seasoned funds for 24 hours just to make sure there's no report of that.
Yeah, and on the so we had a deal a couple weeks ago, and I looked into this. I mean, 10's better than 7, but the bank told us 7 days. I'll confirm with Courtney if it matters to anybody. But look, the thing here is that if someone's giving us a check, and that's going to be deposited as additional earnest money, we're going to have to think through that. We got to make sure that that's going to clear, right? So we got to get verification of that. Okay. All right. I'm going to move along. We got still a lot more to talk about. Wait, Bettina wants to be unmuted. Okay, Bettina, go ahead. Ask your question again. Bettina?
It looks like there's 2 Bettinas. There's a blonde with with glasses on.
Bettina
Maybe it's
Lally.
her that needs to speak.
Oh, okay. Well, it says Bettina Katz in the chat, but okay.
I think that was from the previous question, Will.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, that was definitely a retro question situation.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, let's go. Let's keep this moving along. Number 4, this is the big one. Number 4 is including lending strength and documentation. Notice I didn't say just letter from the lender here. There was a case up in, matter of fact, it was a Park City transaction, Kev, where we had multiple offers. And the reason I remembered is because I think we lost this bid. We lost it to a competitor. It was our listing. Our agent wrote wrote one of the offers. We did not win the bid on our buyer side, but we were the listing company. And these lender letters, guys, can be kind of weak. And so you got to be careful about the strength of your lender letter. And really, it's phrased as documentation. So what we want to do here is really prove the buyer's ability to perform. That's what this is about. Okay? So let's dissect that. So in this, and there's a little editing, I think, to some of the wording here. Let me show it on my screen. What I mean here. Okay. All right. So, yeah, we want to prove that they're well qualified and on their way to full loan approval, or if they already have one, which is tough to do without an appraisal. Some of our lender partners right now, I think Intercap is so bold in their statement. They're saying, you know, we'll guarantee $1,000 payment out to the seller if we give a lender approval letter and we don't get an approval, we'll give the seller $1,000. This is the same purpose that number 4 has, is to bring some confidence in the way the seller views our buyer. But I'd like you to think of it more like the documentation and not just the letter. Okay, I think that would have helped us win the bid in the one I was referring to previously. We kind of had a good lender letter, but the other party went way overboard on proving that they had the ability to purchase. So I've broken this down. That means things like credit has been pulled. That usually does get done in these letters, but job verification, income verification, down payment verification, asset verification. That sentence should be rephrased. It's verifications of credit, job, income, down payment, asset. So you might want to just make a note there. Okay.
And Will, with the a lot of the conversations that we've had with some of our mortgage minutes in our sales meetings, they're saying that those things will stretch all the way into the day of closing in certain situations, right? So that's the other trick to this, right? Is making sure that the job change or reduction or any of those types of things that are happening nowadays because of the economy, preparing your buyer for those situations is a really, really important thing. And then what would be the I guess you'd say appropriateness of explaining the buyer is solid, right, all the way up until the day of or the day before closing.
Yeah. So what Joe is talking about, because of COVID, some lenders are asking the buyer right before settlement to verify again that their job has not been affected by COVID, nor has their income. And if it has, the lender is reserving the right to not do the loan, not approve the loan. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of unprecedented for us because there's no way to really protect around that with the contingency, guys. Other than that the seller cannot sue the seller cannot sue the buyer for not getting a loan. There's no way to really send a strong offer to our seller and say, hey, by the way, if my job changes right before, I could not get a loan, right? So something to think about.
Yeah, Kevin Larson comment in the chat's really good there. He says, if a lender has already submitted to underwriting and is approved, that is much stronger than having a pre-approval status, which is subject to underwriter approval.
Right. Excellent point, Kev. And that's kind of how you have to decipher these lender letters, guys. Some of them are so weak that they'll say pre-approved, and all they really did is make an application and they pulled their credit. And that's better than nothing, but that's not good enough. And all part of our buyer consultation meeting, this needs to happen, right? We make a strategy on how to win bids and get the best deal on the purchase. We have to get serious about getting that approval done.
So,
okay.
Will, sliding into number 5 here, I think going back to Todd's earlier question, he's asking if you see a time in the near future when the sole discretion language will be removed from the Rep C.
Todd, I don't. Yeah, I don't see that happening. The reason why is because sorry, I'm looking at an email really quick here. I've got a surprise for everyone this morning with some new language, but yeah. So Todd, your question, you have to give them the sole discretion because if you don't, you're going to have to write language that says things like only if the interest rate went up X amount, or only if it, costs incurred increased by whatever amount. So the buyer needs to be able to just approve their loan. And that's the nature of that condition. So really this is about education and expectation. So we've got to make sure our sellers know about that. And yeah, that sole discretion, it's come back to get us a number of times. And it's usually because we overlook it, but we're not going to change the nature of that. I was a part of debates on the forms committee that went on for hours about this. And the bottom line is look, you can't sue a lender for not giving you a loan. And if you want a condition around loan, then the buyer needs to be able to just make their own mind up and approve or not approve the loan. So, but good question though. And I'm glad you brought it up because I think it gets missed.
He's asking, could we limit that? Couldn't we limit it beyond the DD?
Well, I mean, that's really the financing and appraisal deadline, isn't it? So if the due diligence is 10 days and your financing and appraisal is 4 weeks longer, then my goodness, you've got that sole discretion hanging out there and someone's going to cancel for any reason. If you make financing and appraisal shorter, then I think you've got a stronger offer. But look, we're missing 8.3 BI. If there's money in 8.3 BI and that buyer cancels after that deadline and prior to financing and appraisal, that money is non-refundable, right? So see, that puts some teeth into due diligence, right? Without it, there is no teeth to due diligence. There's no money in between this gap. Here's due diligence, here's financing appraisal. If we don't have any money in here, then you're giving no teeth to due diligence. Everybody understand that one? That's a big one. So to make your offer stronger, put something in 8.3 BI. And you know, if the listing agent doesn't even understand that, then teach them. Look, we made this offer really strong. It's got 8.3 BI. I'm just laughing at my own. You got to be able to laugh at your own jokes on Zoom. I thought that was funny. We got an 8.3 BI here, Joe.
Well, I can't wait. That's my next tattoo. Is I got money in 8.3 BI.
Now there you go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the input, you guys. Yeah, John, I do laugh at my dad jokes too. So, oh man. Okay. You know, I just got some language from Mark, but I'm going to have to look at it a little bit closer. I think I might, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to be able to reveal it today. I'm going to have to look at it to draft, but I'll tell you about it as this comes up. Okay. What point are we on here, Joe? We at 5?
We're at 5, yes.
Okay. Bullet point number 5. Okay. Let's pull that up. Here we go. Number 5. It's kind of akin to number 2, reducing or eliminating contingencies. I think at first I wanted to deal with this subject to sell a buyer's property. Man, today, right? That's a killer contingency. If that's in your offer, it's really weak given our market conditions. Now, back in 2010, 11, 12, 13. You know, sellers were taking those and playing ball. If the sales price is over, say, $2 million, and it depends on the market, maybe it's more $2 million in Park City and maybe it's over $1 million in Salt Lake County, the seller might want to play ball because the other property might be in a lower price point. But boy, that's a hard offer to deal with when it's contingent upon the buyer's property. So I would look at ways to remove it. It's usually better. On the seller side, if I flip this around, I'm often hearing sellers just tell buyers, come back when your property's under contract. Then we'll look at your offer. Until then, we're not interested. So, all right. This is a big one. Highlight this one. Consider removing the appraisal contingency or agree to pay X over appraised value. Couple of notes here. Jake brought this up in sales meeting recently. I do have some language I want to talk to you about. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to give you the language today, but I'll email it out once it's been proved because it's a draft right now. But let's also make a note that one of our lender partners, Fairway, right? Katrinka said yesterday, hey, we're seeing appraisals being waived when the down payment is substantial, when the value is obvious, it's just being waived, all right? So sometimes you can work with our lender partner. We can make a stronger offer. We may be farther down that process. We couldn't write the offer. I get that. It might be something we cannot foresee, but they're kind of married together because we're removing this appraisal condition. We still have financing, but we don't have appraisal. Okay, that brings me to how do we write language about overappraised value? Well, it would be something like this. Please don't write all this down because it's not, you can't keep it, right? I got to get you something that's more formal. It'd be something like this. The sales price to be $400,000. In the event the property does not appraise for $400,000, let me stop sharing. In the event it doesn't appraise for $400,000, buyer agrees to pay up to, say, $15,000 more than the appraised value, not to exceed than whatever the sales price is. So those would be our blanks, the 15 and the not to exceed and what the sales price is, right? So it'd be structured something like that. So that sounds a little bit like our escalation clause language, doesn't it? See, where we're saying we'll pay additional cash, right? So all of these are kind of married together. At this point, I hope you're kind of getting re-excited about your buyer consultation meetings, you know, your listing appointment with your buyers. You talk about a lot of different things, because these discussions, we've got to lay all this out. We've got to teach and educate them on what this is like and what tools we have to work with to represent them in winning the bid and getting the best price. Okay. All right. So that one's coming, guys. So pay close into your email. Maybe we release this in sales meeting next week. We'll see. But it's going to be some language like that. So you have something you can pull down and put in an addendum and send that over with the offer. I kind of like that better than the escalation clause, you know, to look, because if it appraises for more, I'll still make it up in cash. I like that better, even as a seller. Don't you guys? Than this escalation on top of escalation. You know, I don't know that gives the seller, you know, a lot of confidence just because of what someone else was willing to pay. We all know we've got to get appraisals done, right? To get these loans done. So that seems like a better strategy to me. But we did need language on it, and been working with Mark to get that. Okay, any questions, comments on that one? The next two or three are fairly simple, but no? Okay, if they come up, let me know. All right, let's go on to number 6. Probably just do all these together here. All right, share screen, back, here we go. Okay. So I guess this goes without saying, but we still see contracts that have blanks or no mistakes. So if the agent has to counter your offer, then, you know, a lot of times if they're on the fence, they might as well just counter the other offer or accept the other offer. So make sure you take the time to proof your offer, go through it again. Don't get in a hurry. So no blanks, no mistakes, okay? All right, letter from buyer, letter from agent. The letter from buyer, I think it's addressing that some people make their decisions, you know, emotionally, and it's important to them. And I don't mean to demean that at all. I do this all the time. I often think about how I feel about something, and will often do that, you know, even above what might even seem logical, or, you know, whether the money doesn't always matter to me, right? It's not the number one thing. So it's that way for a lot of people. So sometimes it's important to just let them get to know who the buyer is. The warning here is to be careful of fair housing laws. So all of these classes here, be very careful that our buyer doesn't write some letter that says, I'm of X race or this color, I profess to be of this religion, you know, and I have so many children or whatever, I don't have children, whatever my and then all of a sudden it sounds like we're playing to some kind of cultural advantage. So be very careful in that. I kind of like just, this is who we are without, you know, any kind of spin on any of this. So just be careful of that. Look, you never write that letter. Okay, agents, don't ever write this letter. They write it. Okay, so if it is a little out of bounds, perhaps, unintentionally out of bounds, then, you know, we don't want someone to say, well, you know, my agent wrote it. Okay. Next one is the letter from the agent. And this really is just you guys being really good with your people skills. They go so far, you know, a thank you. I look forward to working with you if it's possible. You know, you can trust me to communicate frequently with you. You know, you're easy to work with. You know, that goes so far, guys. Look, you know, when you have a good buyer's agent on that buyer side and you're the listing agent, how much that means, right? So I would remind you to use that as well, and just be a good partner in the transaction. Okay. Okay. I'm going to put a bow on that because we've got only like 5 minutes, and I wanted to show you some really interesting statistics. And remember, I said I usually would get a running start at something like what brought us here. But this time we just jumped into what are they? Is that okay? I do that. Nod heads. Yes. Or is it okay to move on? Okay, so check this out. I'm just going to fly through these. I saved them in my doc here. This is crazy to me. I did this research last night. Let me pull up a couple. Okay, how about this one? Check this out. These are boat sales, guys. Ski and wakeboard boats are up 338%. What? I thought we were having an economic slowdown. Does this even feel anything like 08? No. No one bought toys. They sold all their toys. Now people are buying. Look at all this. Pontoon boats up. Look at all these breakdowns. Even motor yachts were up 48%. What? Okay, it doesn't end there. How about this one? RV sales. Are they up? Yeah, they're up tremendously. Let me see if I can find where the stat was. I may have had it already down here. Here we go. 46% said they feel safer going camping. Right? Who just said they went camping? This group estimates 90%. Yeah, they've ramped up production. Yeah, this is just, they're up 12%. This is nuts. Right? We're just in the middle of an economic slowdown. So what about housing? And I know we've already heard this, but this is just, CNBC. Pending home sales spike record 44.3% in May as home buyers rush back into the market. That's a national statistic. And you know what we're doing here, right? You know what we're doing with inside our own company. We're having some phenomenal numbers, right? So I'm begging one huge question. Joe, it's my favorite question. Why?
Yep.
And do they have anything to do with each other? RVs, boats, I think I found industries that were struggling because I went the other way. There they are. Hospitality, travel, restaurant.
You're not sharing, buddy.
Oh, whoops. Thank you, Joe. Share. Bang. Here you go. All right. Here's the industries that are hurting, most impacted. Hospitality, travel, restaurants, bars. But construction, manufacturing largely had no layoffs, and these industries did not suffer much at all. I mean, and we're seeing that big time in our own state. So I'm asking why, and we've been seeing some of this around sales meeting, but guys, if we don't understand the reason our buyers and the people we work with are doing what they're doing, I think we miss this connection, right? And if we have no connection, then there's no trust. And if there's not trust, then we don't have a strong relationship and we don't have loyalty to our client or them to us. So what's the reason? Fill up my chat or let's talk. What's going on? Why are we spending so much money in the middle of uncertainty and we're buying homes at record numbers and RVs and boats? And why are we doing all that?
Will, I think one of the key elements of that is like she put in there, people are taking control of their own lives again, where we have been so integrated and dependent upon external third-party sources for everything in our lives, where we work, where we play, where we relax, and we have pushed those things out into the society. And what people are realizing is that can be taken away on a weekend. And so if that happens, how do we live the life we want? And the only way we can do that is by bringing the control of those elements of our lives, right, back into our own control. And I love your phrase when you say, what job do we want the house to do these days, right? That's what it is. If we want time with our family, what are the tools required so that we control that time with our family, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very well said, Joe. Look, the house always was a safe place, but it's never been a place where you were quarantined. I mean, I know never is a big word, but right? You're going to be quarantined there. You may be locked in that place for 2 weeks. If it's not the right size, then you don't have the right house. right? And it's not upside and it's not downside, it's right size. And if it's not safe to you, then you're going to spend the money, you'll borrow the money, you'll do whatever it takes to make that right because you have to feel safe. I know working at home is a big deal. I know that's obvious, but and we've worked from home before, haven't we? I mean, a lot of our buyers say, oh, I used to work from home, but nothing like it is now. So we are asking our houses to do a job that they didn't previously have to do. And that's to be the primary place we work and the place that we have to feel safe from a health standpoint. Not safe as in this is my comfort zone, but safe in a way I can stay healthy, right? So, and does the boats and all that, I'd love to hear your input on why are people buying boats? And I thought, Joe, you did a great job of saying that I want to control their world. There's something else going on there with RVs and boats. And what else could we add to what Joe said? Hey, Bettina, we are not able to keep up with consumer demand on new houses to make up the inventory that is lost. So that pattern is continuing pre-COVID, continues on, just FYI.
Yeah, and Bettina, the article that Will showed said that would be dependent on consumer demand in the future as opposed to what's happening now. If it does slow down, not that it is slowing down, if it does slow down.
You know, Matt's got a good point. I agree with this one too. So we could add this one to the bullet point list. Vacation money's being reallocated. I mean, because it's not going to the airline and the cruise and the hotel. It's going somewhere else, isn't it?
Well, Will, just think about this. Your gym membership money, your gas money in commuting, your clothing budget. Think about everything that you spend that took you outside of your home that you have not been able to spend or have reprioritized simply because, you know, if you're, I mean, how much money do parents spend on their kids' school clothes, right? And now the second half of the year, you had 4 months where you were lucky if you got them out of your pajamas by 11. You know, it's like all of those funds are now being reallocated and reprioritized in addition to traditional things like the summer vacation or something else you might do.
Yeah. I think that's very well said, Joe. You know, I think they have something in common, and we've kind of been hitting it again. This is the safe issue. If I take my kids in my RV, that's my space I've cleaned. If I take my kids on my boat, if I take my kids to my second home, my cabin, right? That's my space. We're safe there. And guys, we are the benefactors of this. I think, look, I wanted to get into, we're out of time, so I'll save this for the next coaching session. Jamie and I talked a couple of days ago. We're going to start putting together some very simple images that you can speak to this. Like, for example, feeling safe in a home. So here's the image, right? And they're at home and they feel healthy there. Then working from home. The ability to work from home. We understand. What about the gym? Like your health is important. Going to the gym was how you stayed healthy. You already learned in your life that if you can't exercise, then that's not going to last, right? So you've got to exercise. And for some people, that does mean at home. It means other things to other people. Maybe it's a bike ride, it's something outside, or it's skiing, or what have you. But those things, I think we need to prospect that way and start speaking that way. So guys, I'm going to put a bow on this. I don't want to go over our time. We're already 1 hour. Can you believe how fast that went? This is crazy. It's like time warp.
Woohoo!
I have to admit, I wish some of my church meetings would go this fast. Wait, did I say that? I didn't say that. Some church meetings are fantastic and go by fast. But, you know, anyway, hey, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do love you all. I wish you the best. Reach out anytime. Happy to help you. You know, that's where we get our real paydays, guys. It's helping you guys get what you want and serve our clients well. There's nothing you can't do, nothing you can't learn. Keep studying because you become what you study. You know, break those long-range goals down to short pieces and make sure you take time off for yourself. All right, guys. Thanks for coming to coaching today. I'll see you next time. Okay? Bye-bye.